but it's the final slide in this video clip series anyway. So again, leave me all the comments in the world. I don't even know for sure if I have comments turned on. That's how new I am at this. But enjoy. Here's the rest of the document the survey and title examiner sent me. It says New Brunswick Power owns PID 2081-1014 and the parent is 2033-40-25, my family's. Well, it doesn't say that anymore. He took that off, remember? Under documents, it has 2406-1526, Smurfit to New Brunswick Power, as a deed transfer, June 28, 2007. So it existed for them to transfer it on June 19th, 2007. But when you go into the documents and how it was created, they say it was created based on this Smurfit document. So which came first, the Smurfit document or the survey? The chicken or the egg? He'll never say. After I pointed this and a few other things out, he never communicated with me again. That's what's so frustrating. If I'm wrong somewhere, just show me. So I didn't hear back from him, but I did get a reply CCing him from the Director of Surveys. This guy's a sly one, let me tell you. Notice how he puts the two PIDs as if they were created together at the same time? When ours was created decades before theirs, based on ownership from decades before the PID system even existed. Then he lays out the bad chain, volume 17, 26, page 34. Remember when I said pay attention to this deed? It's a good one when Nevins Sr. and his wife Mary deed the north half of Lot 15 to their son Nevins Jr. in 1859, but it's not signed off by James Willis until 1861. Then Nevins Sr., Jr., and the wife sell it to the Honorable John Ferguson, volume 22, 124, page 205, in 1870. Then John Ferguson sells it to Sam and Isabella Branch in 1875. Volume 26, 319, page 535, December 2nd. Then Sam and Isabella sell it to John A. Good in 1879. Volume 27, 66, page 113, April 17th. So Volume 29, 161, page 234 in 1882 is an easily proven fake deed of James Nevins Jr. selling it to William James O'Brien on August 11, 1882, and notarized by William James O'Brien's father, John E. O'Brien. But that's what they are using as the deed that gives New Brunswick Power ownership. William James O'Brien even says himself that in 1885 that the riverfront is held for John E. O'Brien. So how does he, William James O'Brien, sell it to Ivers Adams 2 years after that? In 1887. This is what Service New Brunswick and the Registrar General tell me. Oh, it could have been an agreement between father and son that they just didn't register. People did that all the time. But they're going to use a non-existent agreement over our decades of documents? I just don't understand why they won't listen to me. When all of this was going on, I contacted East Coast Surveys. He says the mill did own several properties along the river that were used in the past during log drives, and these parcels were conveyed to New Brunswick Power along with the power line corridor. He claims his survey had nothing to do with our riverfronts, yet his survey is for the power line corridor, which he says is the same in the same sentence, are both being transferred to New Brunswick Power. Then he includes the Smurfit Stone document that describes our riverfronts, even knows that it's item 8A, remember that from New Brunswick Power, though claims his survey had nothing to do with our riverfronts, that he just happens to know about, which, by the way, say nothing about log drives, but does fishing privileges. So which is it? Does he know what 8A describes or not? Plus Service New Brunswick has his survey being based on that document, which he seems to know about, even though it was created 9 days after the registration of his survey. I reply calling him out for being one of those professionals stating falsehoods causing people to think these rumors or lies are true. Because of people like in his position saying it, who we would trust to know what they're talking about. All the powers that be, New Brunswick Power, Service New Brunswick, surveyors, lawyers, are all saying it got sold to Smurfit from the mill, but nobody mentions fishing privileges. Why not say that if those are the documents you are using, instead of saying they are boom contracts? That they are not using those contracts, because they don't exist, by the way. So for months, no one will answer my texts except to say, hire a lawyer. And you can only hire a Service New Brunswick subscribed lawyer, no outsiders allowed. What, like one of you? The Registrar General won't even respond back. Réponse automatique is all I get. Finally, I get back with my original Service New Brunswick land title coordinator to say I cannot get a hold of the Registrar General and get this passive-aggressive response. She says I've had contact with all these people, with the Registrar General being the highest authority. That's the whole point of my email to her. It's in the heading. No, I haven't had contact with him. That pissed me off so much I sent a certified letter to Service New Brunswick with the intention to sue. Then I get an email from the Registrar General, pretty quick, saying he will have a phone conversation with me. Long story short on that, to try and wrap things up. He tells me what needs to be done, gives me the name of a couple of lawyers. One I discount immediately because he's one that's part of this. On the Service New Brunswick website, it has his submitted research that changed the property boundary of my neighbor's land from their name to New Brunswick Power. And no, they were never notified either, but I digress. So I get a hold of this other lawyer that was mentioned. He eventually calls me and tries to tell me those riverfronts are based on old boom contracts from logging. I told him no, they weren't. So he asked me, how would I know? And I say not only has my family lived and farmed and worked there for almost 200 years, but they were also the cooks and guides and loggers, and we have all of our old family's documents, and there are no such contracts. Then he says his secretary is the one who did the search for Williamson, who entered all of this in 2007. Then he informs me he is the architect of this new system and will not do what the Registrar General said, and I will not find another Service New Brunswick lawyer who will. That he had already transferred all those properties into his and his client's name. And he was quite upset that the Registrar General even gave me his name in the first place. So I know I'm up against a wall. They all know I'm right after I sent them all the proof, but I guess they think if they continue to ignore me or just tell me to hire a lawyer, there's not much I can do. As a last resort, I try our family lawyer who we've had for decades. They were defensive from the start when I explained what I wanted them to do as per the Registrar General. They put me off for months and months, and when I became insistent, that's when they broke out of the explanation, the 1883 to New Brunswick Power, and not how they got there, and the saving and accepting clause. Never mind it's a fake deed, but they don't want to hear it. And New Brunswick Power has had title since 1883? They didn't even exist then. And why did my family pay taxes for over 140 years? And if it's so legit taking our land, why haven't they told anybody, including us, that they even did this? And they are counting on their super experienced wife or secretary? I knew it couldn't be an actual title searcher or abstractor. I work in the environmental industry, and even I could find all of these documents. But what's the excuse of the property specialist, the land titles coordinator, the survey and title examiner, the surveyor, the director of surveys, and the Registrar General, who's a self-proclaimed title searcher for decades? It seems that they should know better than me, but if so, why can't a single one of them tell me where I'm wrong, or even have a conversation? There's a reason these bad deeds didn't survive the 1800s. Well, now you know some of what I know, but there's so much more to come, so stay tuned. In conclusion, some lawyer's wife and some other lawyer's secretary found some old 1880s deeds that seemed to save and accept many of our riverfronts. Only the properties that were granted before 1884 Crown Land Grant Act were put under this scrutiny, which we will discuss in a later video. They found the chains of fake deeds from these scheme of merchants trying to buy and sell fishing privileges or riparian rights in the late 1800s. That at the time such privileges were taken over by the Crown. They only traced these fake deeds back as far as the scheme went and refused to go back further to compare them to the legitimate deeds that they were supposed to be based off. They also refused to look at the other chain of title that survived to the current day, writing off every legitimate chain of title deeds and tax documents over the past 150 years as no good. Instead, they put stock in fake, flimsy chains going forward with the poorly written and many times very obvious illegitimate deeds without vetting the prior deeds that these chains were supposedly based on. Again, here is the reason these bad deeds never survived the past century. And then the lawyers created a new system for registered property in New Brunswick that would bypass needing to have a judge adjudicate land disputes, giving full authority to a single lawyer, as long as he was a subscribed Service New Brunswick lawyer. The province accepted this new system. So now when the New Brunswick government takes your land out of your name, you have no recourse to get it back. My thought on that? I don't need to get it back. It never left our lawful ownership in the first place.